Welcome to Lesson 2 of the English Enrichment video. In this lesson, we will look at subject-verb agreement, pronunciation practice of CH, SH, and J, prepositions and verb phrases, meaning from context, and that versatile verb, get. So let's get going. Now, let's talk about verb-subject agreement. This means that the verb must be in the same person or form. For example, the reason isn't clear. Of course, this is quite simple, right? But what we can't let confuse us is having some extra information, a pronoun, adjective, or quantifier appear between the verb and the subject. Let's take the same sentence and add a few things. The reason for these actions isn't clear. And it's clear that reason is still the subject, and the extra information only modifies the subject and doesn't affect the agreement. Let's look at a few more and tell me, what is the subject and which is the correct form of the verb? The results of the election are not clear. Which is the subject? Results or election? That's right, results, and it's plural. So, which is the correct form of the verb? Is or are? That's right, are is correct. Results are not clear. Now, this sentence. Like most boys, John loves to daydream. Which is the subject? Boys or John? That's right, it's John. So, which is the correct form of the verb? Love or loves? Loves, of course. John loves to daydream. One more, and this is a bit more difficult. Louise, but not her sisters, speaks French. What's the subject in this sentence? That's right, Louise. And the verb form? Speaks. Very good. Welcome back. The best way to understand idioms is to hear and use them in context. But sometimes the differences in the construction between various verb phrases are subtle, while the meanings can be quite different. For example, look over, to examine briefly. Look up, to search. Look out, to be careful. Look into, to investigate. The only difference here is the preposition that goes with the verb. Usually, the preposition indicates a location or direction of movement, but there are times when it has its own special meaning for a particular verb phrase. In head over heels, over, the preposition indicates a position of the head in relation to the heels. But in to look over can mean to physically look over the top of something. But in general use, it means to examine, to look at briefly or superficially. Here, over helps to specify what kind of looking you're doing. The same will apply to look up. Obviously, up means the direction up. But to look up something means to search, to look for information in a reference book. For example, to look up a word in a dictionary. The same applies to look out, which can mean to look out of a window or to look out for something, to be careful, attentive for something. Look into can mean to look inside a container or to investigate, to check into something. In our upcoming installment of Head Over Heels, we're going to hear some new idioms, 3 of which we'll use over in different ways. These are to hand it over, to go over, and to check over. Watch the episode and listen for how they are used. You should repeat it if necessary, and I will return afterwards to ask you how over is being used. Now, let's watch Head Over Heels.
Bye, Mom. Bye, Dad. See you later.
Hold on a minute. Did you finish your homework?
Yeah, it's all done.
Hand it over. I want to go over it.
You don't need to do that. I checked it over twice already.
Now, don't give me that. You bring that homework in here right now. You won't be going anywhere. You will be grounded.
Okay, whatever you say. Here you go. It's a grammar assignment.
Read me the first problem.
The news in this magazine aren't clear. The verb should be isn't. The news isn't clear.
That's right. Next.
Mr. Thomas, along with his family, are arriving next week. Are. Mr. Thomas, along with his family, are arriving next week.
You certain about that?
Is arriving?
Yeah, but why?
I'm not sure.
Because the subject is Mr. Thomas, and he is only one person, therefore a singular verb is needed. Okay, do the next one.
3 students in the class were sick today. Were. 3 students in the class were sick today. Students is the subject, and it's plural. So you need a plural verb.
Good. Now the next one.
The clothes he wears are expensive. The clothes he wears is expensive.
Guess again.
I'm sure about this one.
What's the subject?
Clothes.
Is it singular or plural?
Oh, you're right. It's plural. The clothes he wears are expensive.
Okay, that is 2 right and 2 wrong, which is not so hot. You do the next one, it's the tiebreaker.
The group, composed of 9 members, meets every Monday. Meets. Even though there are 9 members, there is only one group. Group is a singular subject, so you need the singular form of the verb.
Okay, you come out ahead, but just barely. I think your grasp of this material is weak. You'd better go back to your room and spend some more time studying and crack those books. After all, practice makes perfect.
Aw, Dad!
Get going. I won't let you shrug this off. I don't know what's gotten into him. He's just trying to get by with the minimum effort. He didn't used to shirk his responsibilities like this. He used to show more dedication.
Hello? Yes, this is Mrs. Kelly. Is something wrong? It's John's teacher.
What's the matter? Let me have it. Hello?
Okay. To hand something over. What does that mean?
Did you finish your homework?
Yeah, it's all done.
Hand it over. I want to go over it.
To hand something over is to put it on top of. To give a hand, to help. To surrender possession of. surrender possession of, give control to someone. In the scene, John's father wants to see John's homework, but John is a little reluctant, so his father demands it. Hand it over. After he has it, he wants to go over it. What does that mean?
Hand it over. I want to go over it.
To go on top of it. To go for it. To review. Yes, that's right. It's to review. John's father wants to review the homework, to look at it. And now, John tells his father,
You don't need to do that. I checked it over twice already.
to put a check over it, to look for corrections, to mark with checks, to look for corrections. To check something is to confirm, and to check over is to confirm that there are no mistakes. So, if you remember that a preposition can mean something other than direction or position, you can look out for other possible meanings.
Joan had a short chat with the children. Jared put the large box of cherries in the Jeep. Jane chose the shrimp with sherry. Do they sound a little confusing? Well, they are. These sounds, sh, ch, j, are some of the most common and difficult distinctions to master in English. Although the differences may not sound important to you, a native speaker will instantly hear and say the subtle change with ease, and will become confused if they don't hear these differences articulated by the speaker. The first sound is sh, the same sound you use to quiet someone. Sh. The second sound is the same sh with a slight t sound in front of it. Ch, as in church. And the third sound is very similar to ch, but has the d with the sh. For example, j, as in jeep. Now let's practice these sounds together. First the sh, then the ch, then the j. Sh, ch, j. Good. Let's practice with some sentences. Shouldn't you get it off your chest? Charlie always jumps to conclusions. Butch gave me the cold shoulder the other day. I just want to have a chat with you. Now, if you think you have mastered these sounds, why not try the tongue twisters at the beginning of the exercise? Good luck.
Hello again. Here's some more of my favorite words. Drizzle. A drizzle is a slight sprinkling of rain. You'd better take your umbrella. It's drizzling. You can also say it's sprinkling. But when it starts raining hard and it's really coming down, you can say it's pouring. And if it doesn't let up and you get caught in the rain, you can say, I got caught in a downpour. It was raining cats and dogs. Grasp. To grasp means to get hold of something. The baby grasped the rattle in its hand. It also means to get hold of something in your mind. Are you able to grasp the difference between these two meanings? If you grasp something, it might slip away, so you should try to get a good grip on it. Now that goes for money, opportunities, and ideas. But don't get greedy. People will think you're grasping. And don't become desperate. You might end up grasping for straws. And what good is a handful of straw? Absent-minded. To be absent-minded means to be so preoccupied with one's thoughts as to be unaware or forgetful of other things. The absent-minded professor was always misplacing his glasses. That happens to me sometimes. My wife says I'm so absent-minded that I'd forget my head if it wasn't screwed on. She's just kidding. Shirk. To shirk means to evade or avoid something, usually a responsibility or a duty. He shirked his share of the work, making everybody else work twice as hard. Nobody likes a shirker. And I would be shirking my duty if I did not explain these things to you.
It was raining cats and dogs. In the last lesson, you learned to pay attention to the preposition and how it can help you understand a new idiom. You also probably saw a few idioms that you learned through context. When understanding an idiom or verb phrase through context, you look for additional information in the sentence or clause, before or after the unknown, to give you information about the meaning of the new word or phrase. In this sentence, bad apple is the unknown. He ruins everything. He's a bad apple. He's a bad apple, and the additional information says he ruins everything. So, a bad apple is a person who ruins things for people or is a bad influence. Let's see to run around with. In college, I ran around with the same 5 people. We did everything together. So, what does to run around with mean? To do everything together. To be in college. To run often. To do everything together. To associate with. The clause, we did everything together, tells you this. Do you think you've got an idea of how this works? Okay. Now, let's see a scene from the last episode of our romance. Listen to the scene and tell me what you think to be grounded might mean.
Hand it over. I want to go over it.
You don't need to do that. I checked it over twice
No,
already.
don't give me that. You bring that homework in here right now, you won't be going anywhere. You'll be grounded.
Now, what does to be grounded mean? To be in the ground. To be restricted to an area. To fall to the ground. To be restricted to an area. But why? What told you that? Of course, in the sentence before it, you see that John's father has said that John won't be going anywhere. So is John's father going to let him go out if he doesn't do his homework? No. He'll refuse. John won't be going anywhere because he doesn't have his father's permission. Therefore, he has been restricted to an area and does not have permission to leave. Let's see another scene. This time, the unknown is tiebreaker. Look at the scene and try to find clues, information to help you find the answer.
Okay, that is 2 right and 2 wrong, which is not so hot. You do the next one, it's the tiebreaker.
What does tiebreaker refer to? John or the exercise? Right, the exercise. John has 2 right and 2 wrong. The score or points are equal, and the last question will determine if John wins or loses. It's the tiebreaker. So what does tiebreaker mean? The point that breaks an equal score. The point you score at the end. The thing you tie a breaker with. That's right, the point that breaks an equal score. Even though you may not know exactly what an unknown word or phrase is, if you look at the context of a word in a sentence, you can approximate its meaning. Now, let's listen for context clues in our latest episode of Head Over Heels.
Hello?
Mr. Kelly, I'm concerned about John's progress in school. He's lost interest in his studies, and I've caught him daydreaming in class. I wondered if he was having any personal problems that were upsetting him.
No, nothing I know about, but he has seemed absent-minded lately. Everything I tell him goes in one ear and out the other. He just races through his homework and makes careless errors. It's like his mind is someplace else.
Well, something is eating him. What about the friends he runs around with? Have you noticed anything different about them? Any strange behavior? Anyone that seems like a bad apple?
It's just the usual group of kids. What are you getting at?
Well, there could be any number of explanations.
You don't think he could be mixed up with drugs, do you?
I wouldn't jump to any conclusions if I were you, but you do have to consider the possibility. Kids get exposed to a lot of things that we can't control, and we've got to have faith that they'll make the right decisions.
I can't believe my John would fall into that trap, but thank you for calling and letting me know. It's been an eye-opener.
You're welcome. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Drugs. What's this about drugs? Is John in trouble?
Not that I know of, but John hasn't been paying attention in class, and Mr. Jones was concerned. His grades are slipping. I think I better have a chat with him.
I finished my homework. Do you think I could borrow the car tonight? What's the matter? Now what did I do?
Did you understand the episode? Remember, earlier in the scene, John's father describes John as absent-minded. Using the additional information in the scene, tell me what absent-minded means.
He has seemed absent-minded lately. Everything I tell him goes in one ear and out the other. He just races through his homework and makes careless errors. It's like his mind is someplace else.
What does absent-minded mean? To not pay attention. To not be present. To be of a different mind. Perfect. It's to not pay attention. What told you that? Exactly. John's father says his mind is somewhere else. Everything goes in one ear and out the other. I hope this shows how listening to the context can help you understand a new word or phrase. Everything I say goes in one ear and out the other. Watch out for him. He's a bad apple. In English, as in many languages, there are words that are used frequently and in many different ways. And like in any language, there are a few verbs that are used repeatedly in many contexts. Though the verb may retain its connotation, its multi-purpose employment tends to make the meaning change from verb phrase to verb phrase. This is the case with get, one of the most versatile words in the English language, and therefore one that can have numerous meanings. These meanings must be memorized if you want to be fluent in English. Get usually means to obtain, but it frequently means to become, to change to, or it can mean to catch an illness or to leave. In our next session, we will meet a very well-traveled man who's also an amateur photographer. He will show us pictures from his trip to Spain, and he will also illustrate many ways of using get in a verb phrase. Look at the list in the book and listen how he uses the verb. At the end of your visit with our world traveler, you will have encountered almost all of the possible common uses of get.
Hello. 2 summers ago, I managed to get away for 3 whole weeks. And I went for a vacation in the southern part of Spain called Andalusia. After I decided to go, I got busy and wrote some of my old friends who lived there. I got in touch with one friend who said he could get off work and show me around Granada. When I got off the plane, I got on a bus that took me up the narrow highway to Granada. It began drizzling as the bus approached the town, and it started pouring while I was looking for a hotel. By the time I found one and checked in, I was soaked to the skin. I'm lucky my camera didn't get wet. I got up early the next morning to meet my friend, and we hailed a taxi to take us up to the Alhambra. The cab got stuck in traffic, so we jumped out and walked up the hill to the old Moorish palace that overlooked the city. The Alhambra is a fantastic example of the Arab influence on Spanish architecture. I couldn't get over how beautiful it was. It was from this type of Moorish building that the use of fountains and courtyards were popularized and later copied throughout the world. That evening I started sneezing, and I thought I was going to get a cold, but I went to bed, and by early morning, I'd gotten over it. After my friend went back to work, I rented a car and drove down to Jerez, the city world famous for its sherry. I turned off the main highway and took a side trip to some of the small towns that are tucked away in the hills. It's easy to get lost in the narrow streets of these towns. I really got mixed up and turned around. I didn't know which way was up. But with the help of a guidebook, I soon got straightened out and began exploring the charming cobblestone streets, enjoying the scenery and the sunny weather, and of course taking lots of pictures. I got carried away with the romance and excitement of Spain, and if I ever get a chance to go again, I won't hesitate.
If you learn the various uses of get, as demonstrated just now, you will have a very good idea of when to use get and many of its common forms. Now let's watch part 6 of Head Over Heels. You won't hear many gets in the verb phrases, but you will hear some new idioms like to goof off, which means to not be serious, to be irresponsible. And we also have the phrase to come over someone. This refers to a strange or sudden change that affects someone. For example, John's parents are worried about what has come over him, as we see in this episode.
I only asked to borrow the car.
Where do you think you're going?
I told some of the guys that I'd meet him over at the bowling alley.
John, Mr. Jones called.
Oops. And he said you've been goofing off in class. He said he's caught you staring off into space a number of times.
Where are you running off to now? Homework is your first priority, John.
Well, I'm gonna...
What have you put in your hair?
It's just a little...
You're wearing your father's aftershave. What are you up to, mister?
Well, I have a date with Linda. Linda from school, Linda Ramos. Well, not exactly a date, but I've been meaning to ask her out for weeks. She's the best looking girl in the whole school. I'm crazy about her.
A girl. Is that what's come over you?
How sweet.
Yeah, she's been on my mind a lot lately. I haven't thought of much else. That's why I need to borrow the car. I really need it.
Where are you taking her?
First, I'm going to go over to her house and help her with her homework. Then we're going out for burgers.
Now, how can you help her with her homework? You can't even do your own.
The key, Dad? Thanks, Dad. Thanks, Mom. I'll take good care of it. You can count on me.
A girl! I should have known he's head over heels for some girl.
I guess you can't scold him for that.
I'm kind of relieved.
You know, our first date doesn't seem that long ago, does it?
You still remember?
Of course. How could I forget? You didn't have a car and we had to walk to the movie. But you swept me off my feet.
I was so nervous the first time I asked you out. My voice cracked.
Yeah. You said it was static on the line and I believed it. I was just a starry-eyed teenager.
Those were the days.
She was starry-eyed. Let's see a small test on lesson 2. Why did John's father want to see John's homework? He wanted to check it out, check it off, check it over. If John were grounded, he couldn't leave the house, leave his homework unfinished, ground a wire. The news is, was very violent these days. If to burn is to consume with fire, then to burn up means to burn completely, to burn towards the top of a building, to burn in the air. Mark the word you hear. Cherry. Get means to obtain. It can also mean to behave, to bewitch, to become. What does to get angry mean? To be angry, to stay angry, to become angry. To go in one ear and out the other is the same as to goof off, to not listen, to be a bad student. Well, I have to tell John something. Tomorrow we'll have a chat. What does to have a chat mean? To have coffee. To have a small conversation. To have a promise.